Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Great Nigerian student, articulate Nigerian student. I am Adetiba by nickname, the President Nigerian female student, and I'm here to represent my principal, my mentor, and my role model in person of the Executive Director of Gender Mobile Initiative, Barrister Omowumi Omotayo Ogunrotimi. She is to speak on the role of youth and stakeholders in tackling sexual harassment in tertiary institutions across Nigeria. So I'll be delivering her speech. She prepared this. Sexual harassment has assumed critical dimensions in higher education institutions. This seen in studies and documentaries that continues to reveal the increasing prevalence and varying manifestation of sexual harassment. A research conducted by Owaje and Olushola Taiwo revealed that 69.8% of the respondents who were female students had been sexually harassed in Nigerian tertiary institutions, with the main perpetrators being male classmates and lecturers. This is complemented by a research executed by Gender Mobile Initiative to ascertain the state of sexual harassment in 6 Nigerian tertiary institutions out of 4,261 students assessed. The research indicated on an overall note that about 50% of the respondents had either experienced a form of sexual harassment or knew someone who had. This depicts that at least half of the number of students in Nigerian tertiary institutions know someone who has been involved in sexual harassment, thereby making them a potential bystander. The 2019 BBC Search for Grade documentaries also exposed the occurrence and effects of sexual harassment, as the documentary showcased the treacherous behavior of male lecturers towards female students by demanding sexual favor in exchange of grades. It also highlighted sexual harassment as a pattern of violence that is gender and power centered. The aforementioned research and documentary not only brought to light the open secrets in the environment of learning, but also revealed factors that continue to sustain the societal and gender menace. Factors such as underreportage of cases, the non-existent or lack of proper implementation of anti-sexual harassment policy, poor institutional response, the bystander effect. This is a situation whereby person witnesses an incident but does nothing to address it, and lack of clear reporting channel attribute to sustain the prevalence of sexual harassment. To address this scourge of sexual harassment, not only should a state of emergency be declared on it, stakeholders should also be identified and enlightened on their roles in order to ensure accountability. These critical stakeholders include students, management members of institutions, academic and non-academic staff, parents, governmental bodies such as Ministry of Education, the National Orientation Agency, the National Human Rights Commission, the Independent Corrupt Practice Commission, the ICPC, regulatory agencies such as State Fund, NUC, NCCE, MBTE, CVC, NASU, ASU, and non-government organizations. The roles of stakeholders in the fight against sexual harassment in our fine institutions are diverse. For instance, tertiary institutions are tasked with the responsibility of creating a conducive and equal learning environment. As this is achieved through collective efforts, All members in the campus community have a role to play towards such achievements. In particular, management members are to implement a robust mechanism that adequately prevents and addresses cases of sexual harassment. This includes the design and implementation of anti-sexual harassment policy, committees, instituting clear reporting channel and grievance procedure, and a timely response to cases brought forward. If the staff and students of the institution work together to promote a zero-tolerance culture towards sexual harassment, this would positively influence educational participation outcomes. Are we following? All right. Government bodies and regulatory agencies functions as accountability partners and watchdogs in driving the fight against sexual harassment in tertiary institutions in line with their mandates. Access for grades is a form of corruption which operates mostly from a power center standpoint. Bodies such as ICPC, whose mandate is to address all the form of corruption, is bound to investigate corrupt acts by officials, including institutions of learning, and sanction persons found guilty, thus promoting transparency and justice for victims. Students, who mostly comprise of the youth population in campus communities, have a critical role to play as a proactive bystanders who intervene in cases of sexual harassment in a responsive manner. As research and feedback from stakeholders engagement has indicated that inability of persons to report a case of sexual harassment on behalf of the victim also contributes to the rise of such form of sexual violence in institution. In turn, endangering the culture of silence, which promotes the reoccurrence and normalization of social and gender vices. In view of this, recommendations have been made by researchers and practitioners to include bystander intervention as part of the strategies aimed at tackling sexual harassment in our institution of learning. As victims do not report cases due to factors such as social stigma, fear of reprisal, and physical insecurity or trauma, bystander intervention will encourage persons to speak out for themselves and on behalf of affected persons. As proactive bystanders, students are responsible for identifying instances of sexual harassment and intervene in a positive, pro-social way of witnessing an event that they recognize to be problematic. Proactive bystanders also guide victims to seek help from appropriate bodies in order to make informed decisions. Students, staff, and parents should assume the responsibility of being a proactive bystander, as they have the power to prevent sexual harassment and by extension make the environment safe for learning and social interaction. Although parents do not dwell in the social environment with their children, they should encourage their wards to speak out when they experience a form of sexual harassment. In case of sexual harassment between the students and lecturers, the lecturer is often viewed as the local imparentis, that is, the second parent or guardian to the students. As students are entrusted in lecturers' care, unfortunately, some lecturers take advantage of the trust by sexual harassing the students. Therefore, parents should recognize that entrusting their wards into a lecturer's care should be carried out with caution. As a non-governmental organization, Gender Mobile complement the policy and programs efforts of the aforementioned stakeholders in nipping sexual and gender-based violence in the bud, particularly in environments of learning, while leveraging and enhancing the power of technology through a campus initiative project. The campus initiative is a project aimed at supporting tertiary institutions to address sexual harassment from a policy, technological, and bystander intervention standpoint. As we are making efforts to extend our alliances and strengthen collaborative efforts, we use this medium to implore staff and students in institutions, government and non-governmental stakeholders, regulatory agencies, parents, students and alumni associations to join us in the fight against sexual harassment. To conclude, all stakeholders must recognize that they play critical roles in the prevention and response efforts towards eliminating sexual harassment. Thus, it is a shared responsibility that requires collective effort to achieve a society devoid of sexual harassment. Thank you very much.